Blessings in the name of the Lord Jesus. Welcome to Paraclet TV, making disciples through the power of the Holy Spirit. Session, 100% of the students with 100% level of proficiency will be able to differentiate the specific methods of research. So last meeting, we have discussed about the two major design of research, and at this point in time, we will be discussing about the different specific method of research. So on the table, you will see the different commonly used specific design under the general design, or specific method under the general design. So you have under qualitative, it can be narrative, it can be ethnography or ethnography, it can be a case study, phenomenology, or historical, or you can also use grounded theory. And then under quantitative, we have experimental and non-experimental. And under non-experimental, we have comparative, correlational, descriptive, or evaluative. So our focus this afternoon, after we have finished discussing this specific method or specific design, then you must choose your specific design. Let us now start with the narrative design. What is this narrative? Let us start first with the qualitative design, and we have the narrative, and it is usually used in humanities and social sciences. So mass communication is an example, is a body of science that under humanities. And so you can use narrative. And then when we speak about narrative, we are looking into the special and the different experiences of people. And then in the narrative design or method, the answers in your statement of the problem will be through the narration of accounts of their experiences. So what you're going to do is just to narrate or to to restate or to write the narration of accounts of your participants. And then this is very useful when you do a qualitative research using narrative after a peculiar experience. So if there is a peculiar experience, you can what are some example of peculiar experiences? One, big fire. So when there is a big fire, you can do a narrative research about those victims of big fire. Then the victims of flood, storm surge, especially what happened in Tacloban. Actually, I made a research in Tacloban about the effect of storm surge in the different restaurants in the locality. So that's, but I did not choose narrative. I think I have used phenomenology, but narrative can also be used. Then we have kidnapping incidents, massacres, among others. These are examples of peculiar experiences wherein narrative design or narrative method can be used in research. Next type of qualitative design, we have the ethnographic method. And when we say ethnography, it is very useful in the science of anthropology and social sciences. Anthropology and social sciences. And then, what do we do when we say ethnographic? Ethnography, anthropology is the study of culture. And of course, we know what social sciences are. And when we speak about ethnographic method, we look into the patterns of behaviors, the patterns of attitudes, of course, the spatial culture and beliefs. No, and these are being observed, which are being experienced by a cultural or minority group. Say, for example, you want to look into how's the culture of our Aitas in Bataan, no, in Mariveles or in Dinalupihan. There are also Aitas in Olongapo. that is called now ethnographic or ethnography. And then you can look into the behavior of the ITAs. You can also uh, look at their attitudes as well as their different cultural beliefs, or even the way they do their marriage, when they are having their birthday, or even if they have fiestas, or how they worship God. So we call that as ethnography. Now, a very needed requirement for an ethnographic researcher is there must have an immersion. So it is highly needed, or it is recommended for a researcher in ethnography to have an immersion. What is immersion? So it is the process of living with, no, living with your participants or the subject of your study, so that in 24 hours you will know what they are doing. You can stay within the community. So if you are planning to study about the cultural beliefs of ITAS, how do they use social media, so you must live in the SBMA. You know, there are communities in the SBMA. No, I was once there. Ano, I went to one church in SBMA. Inside the SBMA, there is a community of ITAS there. There are about 100 families of ITAS, if I'm not mistaken. So if you want to conduct ethnographic research there, you can stay for maybe for at least 1 week. You live with them so that you will feel like an Aita, or you will eat like an Aita, or you can worship spirits like an Aita. So immersion is highly needed. And then the next one is phenomenology. So what is phenomenology? It is, of course, being used in the study, popularly used in the study of psychology and social sciences. So, of course, we know what psychology is. And then when we speak about phenomenology, we are looking into the life experiences of individuals. No, life experiences of individuals. So, and then what other characteristics? The researcher interviewer, of course, must be prepared how to conduct an interview if you are going to use interview, because mostly when we do qualitative research, the method to gather data usually is by an interview. And a researcher in a qualitative research must know or must have the skill of interviewing. Anyway, you are taking up a mass communication, or mass communication, so you know how to conduct interview. And interview, of course, is the most popular way of collecting data in a qualitative research, and especially phenomenology, because you will be looking deeply how these people live. And then in an interview, usually in a phenomenological date research, you must always be prepared with your probe, Probe, probing process. What is probing process is also the same with follow-up question. So say, for example, you have the general question. Say, for example, you are asking about a very, the top notcher in the board exam, and your question is, what preparation did you do that you made it on top? And then the interviewee or the top notcher will tell you he is sleeping for about only 2 hours in the remaining review. So you are going to ask questions. So how do you sleep for about 2 hours? Or what are the ways of your reviewing? No, and when you are sleeping, do you have dreams about taking the board exam, so on and so forth? We call that as probing process. Probing process is for you to clarify, or to clarify, to make it clear, and of course, to look at some details of his answers, so that when you do an interpretation of accounts, it will be more realistic because you have made probe questions or probing. So it is very important not only in phenomenology, but of course in other type of research wherein you are going um, to use interview schedule, no, in the gathering of data. You know, I have conducted phenomenological study, and my study focused on the life experiences of CPAs, the newly passed CPAs that are in the teaching profession. No, so my research is it's about the needs, the challenges, and the coping mechanisms of newly hired instructors or newly hired CPAs in college. Now, that's my topic about phenomenology. And I have, I think, seven newly hired CPAs. And my paper won third best paper in the international research for psychology, science, social sciences, and education. International conference on psychology, education, and social sciences, and it was published in the international journal. You can see that paper if you like in the Google Scholar, no, the needs, no, the challenges, as well as the coping mechanisms of the newly hired CPA instructors. And that is an example of phenomenology. The secret of phenomenological study, of course, is the skill in interviewing. So you have to really go detailed and deeper to the experiences of those people. We have also conducted another research, and the research is about more of half phenomenological study in the case study, because we produced two top notchers during my time in 2016. They were my students in research, and two of them top notcher number one and number two during the CPA board exam. So we did an phenomenological study and a case study, and the two students were our respondents, but we did not finish the research. We have also another type which is called case studies. So case study is an in-depth analysis of an exceptional case of a person or group of people or even institution. So if you want to study about a certain social media, it can be a case study in a type of person, one person of a very exceptional case. That is also a case study. Or I can also study about vacuum 3, no, Bachelor of Arts in Communication, third year, because you are only 5 and no one is in synchronous. Are they attending asynchronous? Because they were not submitting also their papers. No, and you can also study about an institution, one institution. So a case study, you can have only one subject, no, as your participant. The case refers to a program, to a project or event that one experiences. And then we can also, in a case study, your time and of course, variety of data are needed to fully describe a case. So you must have a very good data, and not only good, but of course, numerous empirical data to really look at the spatial case. No. Then we have also the next one, which is a specific method for qualitative, and this is called historical. And when we speak about historical research method, this includes the past events, and of course, the personalities are important in this study. So mostly the personalities are those that are already old, no, old enough in the community. No, the lolo, the lolas, the barangay captains, and other important people in the place, which can give you the reliable facts about the history of the place. So the past events, the personalities, and of course the time or the period are good considerations for historical study. Then the personalities are mostly aged and they are still alive, are good source of information and facts. So when you do historical studies, of course, those people that lived for longer period of time, then you can ask them the data. Even even documents are needed as evidences of the research. So in a historical data, you can also gather documents such as the documents in the church, the documents in the barangay hall, or the documents in the different offices of the locality. And if there are museums, you can look also of the documents, or not only documents, but of course, artifacts, no? Some important thing that are aged or old that are still existing during the conduct of history. And when you see some artifacts, when you see some documents, you have to look into and you have to criticize them internally and externally. Now, when we speak about external criticism, say for example, you have seen a diary, so you can look at its external qualities such as the kind of paper, the kind of ink that was used for the diary, or you can also look at the paper marks if it is really authentic, because the papers which are really old enough have different colors. There are already many paper marks as compared to the new papers. These are examples of external criticisms. And then internal criticisms, of course, you go through the data, you read it, and if you have read the data and you have seen that you are convinced that the data are true and factual, then that is called internal criticism. So in the historical research, when you find a document, when you find an artifact or some things that will serve as the evidence of your research, you have to use the external and internal criticisms. Okay? So those are now the kinds of um, qualitative research that you can choose from. We have narrative, ethnography, case study, phenomenology, historical, and then the grounded theory. And then let us proceed. The grounded theory I did not discuss because it will be very difficult for you to do because you are just a bachelor's degree. Because a grounded theory is a kind of qualitative research wherein you have to produce or to come up with a theory out of the study. Now let us proceed now with the other type, and this is called now the quantitative specific. Share Jesus.
Subscribe and
Subscribe and
share
share
Qualitative
Qualitative TV.
TV.
Go, go, go.